Hi, this is Maggie from Crafts the Charm. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to show you how I went from this, a garden fence I built last summer, to this, privacy and a lovely backdrop for my coastal garden. For those of you who are curious about the vegetable garden fence and the garden's walkway and patio around the vegetable garden, I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video. I think most of you are probably here to see the cladding. To start, I wanted to put some Gothic fencing at the end of the garden because the garden is visible from the street and it's not attractive, especially in the winter. I had a few panels, but not enough, so I looked on Facebook Marketplace. Eventually, I found a listing not only for the panels, but the guy was also offering to deliver them for free. Since I don't have a truck, I jumped at that listing. That was super nice. He delivered far more than I needed to hide the end of the garden from the road. The vegetable garden is approximately 30 feet by 16 feet. For most of those fence panels, the bottom was rotten. I thought I'd be able to cut off the bottoms so they were all a consistent height and screw them to the fence, and I did that at first. There were a few little issues, like I had to remove the panel rails where the posts are, but it worked. It just looked terrible, so I'll come back to that. But then I had a ton of fence panels left over, so I decided to put the pieces horizontally across the long end of the garden in front of my coastal plants. Last year I zip-tied reed fencing there, and I thought that looked fine, but this will be more permanent, and I love the look. To start, I had to remove all of the pickets from the rails. Here's how I did that. I leaned the panels against the fence so that I was working with the back of the fence. I started at the bottom, where they're most rotten. I just used a crowbar to separate the rail from the pickets. Set the rail aside because we're going to reuse that if it's not too rotten. I then moved up and did the same for the middle rail. If you do this carefully, you won't break any pickets that aren't already too rotten to save. 2 notes. The first is, you might be dealing with a lot of rusty nails, as I was, so make sure you're up to date on your tetanus shots and just be very mindful as you do this so you don't have any need of a tetanus shot. Don't try to be fast, and don't apply a lot of pressure. Second, check for screws. Sometimes when a fence is falling apart, folks will screw it together. I removed the screws with a screwdriver before I used the crowbar, because unless the picket is really rotten, you're not going to be able to pull it off of a screw. Once I had the bottom and middle rails off, I tipped the panel the other way, so I was working on the right side, and I just pulled the pickets off. You can do that with a little wiggling. After I removed all of the pickets from the rails, I removed all of the nails from the pickets and rails. I did this by hammering the nails from the pointy end, the back side of the picket, and then pulling them out with either a hammer or a nail puller. With the rails, I pulled them out with the hammer or the nail puller. That's probably the most time-consuming part, but you definitely want to dispose of all of those rusty nails. I now want straight boards, so I measured the pickets from the shoulders of the decorative part at the top to where the rot started at the bottom, and I could consistently get about 5 feet and 5 inches of decent board out of each picket. I cut one picket to that length, and then I used it to mark other boards. I didn't cut all of them. If there were boards that seemed like they had a lot more or a lot less good wood, I set them aside. Now my fence is 30 feet long with posts every 6 feet. I want to clad it with this wood so that each row is offset from the last. So I needed a post centered at 5 feet 5 inches to attach the first board to, and then I needed a post part way across to attach a short board to immediately over the first one. I decided to put that one at 21 inches because I liked the way that looked. I used the rails for these extra posts. I just took a rail, put it between the top and bottom rails of my fence and marked a line for cutting. I then cut the rail. Now I know I didn't build this garden fence properly. I should have oriented the rails not flat but standing on end to prevent sagging, so this will hopefully help a little too in preventing the fence rails from sagging. I bought a pocket hole jig last year when I built the fence, so I used the pocket hole jig here to attach the new posts to the rails. The pocket hole jig comes with the jig first, which you clamp to the board, and then it comes with a drill bit and a bit for driving screws. Unfortunately, it comes with a square bit, so I bought a star-shaped bit because I really hate screws with a square head. Right here where I'm showing you the jig, I didn't have any star head screws, so I'm using the square screws that came with the jig. So first you drill your holes, and then I always start the screws, and then I put the board in place and I finished screwing the screws in. What I found here is that it was most successful if I did a bottom screw first because it helped me make sure I kept the new post centered where I wanted it. So 4 screws, and I have a post I can nail my boards into. To attach the boards, I drilled pilot holes and then nailed them in. Many of them were warped, so I nailed them first just with one nail in the center, and as I worked along and got the boards around in place, I would secure them with more nails, 2 per board per post, so at least 4 but often 5 or 6. Now, I started by thinking I should put them in level, but then I changed my mind and thought they should go with the grade of the fence, which isn't quite level, it slopes up a tiny bit. And I started by using a spacer and putting space between the boards, and then when I changed them to be less level, I stopped putting space between. That may be a huge mistake, I'll find out. Animals can get through spaces, even tiny spaces, but the boards can pop out if they're too tight. If I were doing it again, I'd make the boards level with the fence, and I'd space them all. So that is what I did. I just worked my way across the fence, putting in posts and adding boards. At the very end, I just put the last boards in place, drew a line where I needed to cut them, and attached them. The boards that had more and less than 5 feet 5 inches I used for those smaller boards at the beginning and end. In some cases, I only had enough for a small board, and in some cases, I had enough for 2. Now, what I ended up doing on the other end, where the pickets are vertical, is I removed all of those pieces, removed the pickets from the rails, and then nailed the pickets to the fence individually. I made myself a little 1-foot guide because the tops of the pickets are 1 foot above the rails, and I just used that to place each picket. These I did space a screwdriver's width apart, and I just nailed them onto the fence. I think it looks much better than when I tried to just attach existing fence panels to the garden fence. And I put a little trim at the bottom because the bottom pieces weren't even, so I didn't bother to try to measure and cut those, I just added a baseboard, essentially. So that is how I created a basically free backdrop for my coastal garden and patio that hides the sometimes unsightly vegetable garden from the patio and the road, giving me privacy when I work in the garden. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. If you're interested in what I did last summer, stay tuned. If not, thank you for watching, and take care. Now the last summer part of the video. You may remember that at the beginning of last summer, I had a coastal garden and some patio. I have videos on making the patio, the garden edging, and the pumpkin patch. I have a lot of trouble with woodchucks and rabbits. For the vegetable garden, I'd put in a couple of posts and then I'd been using this temporary fencing, which actually works pretty well, but you need to add chicken wire if you want it to keep animals from going through and going over. This is the temporary fencing, and it's panels. And you can see there are loops at either end. One end has a lower loop, and one end has a higher loop. That's the higher loop. And that's the lower loop. So you line them up so that you've got a higher loop on top of a lower loop. Oops, they're a little dirty. And then you put stakes through down to the bottom to attach them. So here's a pile of the stakes. And I think I bought them on Amazon. I'll include a link if I did. Right now, it's kind of handy for me. I've segregated off inside my garden the pumpkin patch, which you can see is just getting started, because a rabbit is nesting right there in this bed, and I don't want her to go on over there and eat the pumpkins, but I have to let this play out to its conclusion. So I think that probably a lot of animals can get through these spaces, but you can put chicken wire along the bottom, the way I've done on the fence. That's the rabbit's hole that she gets through. And I think with chicken wire along the bottom, it would be pretty good against rabbits. But then I actually watched the woodchuck climb over this when this was all I was using around my garden. So that's why I have this wire along the top. That's for the woodchuck and raccoons. So what would happen is they'd try to get in from the outside and their weight would pull that down, they wouldn't be able to get over it, at least so far, and in theory. Okay, back to the beginning of last year. What I realized is that I wanted to move the vegetable garden, move the coastal garden, and add patio in front for various reasons. So the first thing I did was move the raised beds of the vegetable garden and take out the posts. Before I could move the plants, I had to put in the side of the vegetable garden fence that is the back of the coastal garden, the one I clad in today's video. So I put in the posts and the rails, and I put landscaping timbers in front of that as the back of the coastal garden. To attach the rails by myself, I clamped a piece of wood to the post so that one end of the rail could rest against the piece of wood while I screwed in the other end. As I mentioned before, I should have oriented the 2x4s differently to avoid sagging. Around the rest of the garden, I used the temporary black fence with fencing on top, curved outwards, so that the woodchuck couldn't climb over the fence. I stapled a roll of plastic fencing to the inside. For the coastal garden, I have 3 different kinds of white rocks in there, and I spent a bunch of time removing and separating them. Then I moved the plants. The zebra grass was challenging, as they're quite large, but I was able to move the plants up in front of the vegetable garden fence. I actually moved the plants before I put the retaining wall in. What I wanted to do was have a curvy garden with the plants, but I needed a straight border for my pavers. So I created a 2-level garden with the landscaping timbers just as I showed in that video. They're basically planted and screwed together. Around this time, I also did the side of the fence facing the road. Once the retaining wall extended beyond where I was going to pave, I just started paving, bringing the pavers up to the garden. And once there, I built the second wall to hold them in place. Where I don't have the landscaping wall holding them in place, I use that black plastic stuff that you stake into the ground to hold my pavers in place. Now, another Facebook Marketplace find. I got some free pavers, which are exactly the pavers I like to use, small brick-shaped pavers called Holland Pavestone at Home Depot. I wanted to have a small walkway from the patio up to where I was going to put the gate to the vegetable garden. I didn't get enough free to finish this, but I bought the remainder. They aren't very expensive. One thing I did that I'd never done before was cut the pavers, so I was able to fit them together at an angle. I used an angle grinder to do this, and lots of safety equipment. It's a little intimidating, but much better than my old way of cutting pavers, which was with a chisel and only worked about 25% of the time for me. I built the other short wall because that's where I wanted to put the gate, and I built the gate. It actually took a bit of thinking to figure out how I wanted to do the latch. This is a latch I can pull open from the outside using a wire that's threaded through a hole I drilled in the post. Once that was in place, I could finish the little walkway. You can see I'm using the black plastic stuff to keep the bricks in here. And then I used the landscaping timbers to hold most of the pavers in on the side of the patio and created another garden. This garden has what I'm calling the privacy pier. It's old fence posts that I got from, you guessed it, probably about 6 different Facebook Marketplace listings, and I've just arranged them for a little privacy as if they were some sort of pier. On the coastal side, I've planted some ornamental blue fescue that I planted as seeds. It's gotten a little bigger this year. And the other side of this, facing the road, is inspired by the beautiful gardens on the Canada side of Niagara Falls. The last thing I did was finish off the final long side of the fence. Here are some pictures from last fall. Here's a picture from after the blizzard. And pictures from this year now. Technically, it's still spring. Tell me in the comments where you think I got those faux whiskey barrel planters and how much they cost. Or if you have any other questions or comments, please drop them below. And if you lasted this long, I can't thank you enough for watching. I hope you have a wonderful summer. Take care.